So we're going to look at the process and review it and get reactions concerning what transpired and what is still to come. Here in our studios, we've got Mr. Monday Obani, former second vice president of the NBA and also former chair of NBA Ikeja chapter. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Yeah, Chamberlain, thanks.
And then in Abuja, we've got Tahir Maman, OON, who is a senior advocate of Nigeria and former vice chancellor from a DG, Nigerian Law School. So we'll have good legal heads this morning. So morning, sir, and thank you for joining us today on Sunrise Daily. Let's start off with getting your reaction in form of your impression about how, especially the latest latter parts of these elections, we do know that quite a number of these elections have been declared inconclusive, and some of them, the process suspended. So still waiting for some of them to be concluded. What do you think of how it has turned out so far?
Thank you, Chamberlain. The process towards this part of the elections is very worrying in terms of the number of lives we are losing in the country and the level of violence actually which has beset the process. Is truly worrying because no life of any Nigerian really should be lost because we are running elections. We shouldn't convert our elections into a war. But we also know that in terms of deployment of logistics, INEC has improved from the last elections conducted in terms of arrival of materials and performance of the card machines, card reader. But we have new concerns in terms of the violence that we have seen as mentioned. And then furthermore, this spate of inconclusive elections is not a surprise actually, because the trend was already there during the presidential elections where those states registered some level of competition. The margin of victory for the parties which succeeded was very narrow. So it was only almost certain that for the governorship and the local elections, it was going to be much more competitive. And again, the voters now have opportunity to assess really the performance of those who have been in office, who want to continue, and then the level of integrity they have demonstrated while in office. And then, of course, the quality of those who are trying to succeed them. So in the process, the competition has become very keen and really, truly competitive. And INEC is on ground, is right in terms of the law when it declares some of these elections inconclusive because of the margin of lead principle, which is quite embedded in the Constitution and the Electoral Act. So they are all right. And for anybody who wants to lead either at the state level or the state assembly, I don't see any problem with going back to the electorate once more to ensure that those who couldn't participate in the process because of disruptions, violent disruptions or whatever glitches that there were, should be given opportunity really to now contribute to the emergence of whoever will be their leader.
Yeah, but Prof,
so all these are appropriate.
Pardon me, Prof.
Right.
What do you say to those who are dissatisfied with the performance of INEC across board? They just think that compared to the last election, they expected so much in terms of the way the elections, operationalizing the elections, the time that elections began, arrival of the ballot papers, announcement of results, the conduct of electoral officers. Quite a number of people just think that we'll have a huge room for improvement moving forward.
I agree. There have been logistics challenges here and there. But overall, certainly there have been improvements on the elections that we had in the past. And by and large, the political actors have not made things easy for INEC. And to me, this is where the focus is actually. INEC has assumed or has been given enormous responsibilities, including security, which it is not cut out for. And, but principally, those who are making these problems much more difficult for INEC are the political actors who have converted what is supposed to be a civic responsibility, a civic exercise, into a military battle. And elections are not a military battle. So we shouldn't have ballot snatching, now result snatching, burning of offices of INEC and houses and properties of private people because we are running elections. These are things which are beyond INEC. And so to me, INEC has actually done a good job. What needs to be done is the attitude of the politicians, a lot of whom want to retain power by all means and are prepared to sacrifice their lives of Nigerians and everything else, in their quest to retain power. And those who want to come in, using all means available at their disposal. This is what we should be focusing on. Otherwise, to me, INEC has been doing a good job.
How important do you think it is for INEC, especially the returning officers at the state, to present issues such that it doesn't seem that partisanship has taken over? As the papers are reporting today, opposition, strongholds, all of them, if not all, 90% of them have their elections inconclusive at this moment, and some are still pending. What views do you have on that?
Well, as I said, from the statistics that we have there, it is not just in opposition control states where we have inconclusive elections. Certainly, places like Plateau, Bauchi, Adamawa, these are all APC states. But by and large, as I said, in a very competitive setup, we have somebody is likely to complain, in particular where the margin of victory, is very narrow at the presidential election. Naturally, there will be very stiff competition. Strong efforts will be made to want to, take over in those places, win in those states, and then obviously there will be resistance. So this is what is happening. So to me, INEC, you remember also Adamawa State, I read this morning where the government, APC government is saying INEC and military people have connived, this is a government controlled state. So by and large, like we saw during the presidential elections, all parties are complaining. Maybe there may be one or two more additional states in the opposition control state, but by and large, to me, the electoral body has been generally fair. Of course, there have been instances where some of the officials haven't lived above board, and where they have been arrested so far. And these ones, you cannot really attribute that to a wholesale connivance on the part of INEC, to work in favor of particular parties.
Barrister Bani, there are 3 levels in this process so far. It's vote casting, it's vote counting, it's vote collation. That's popular, interesting talk. No, I'm talking about the C's. I'll come to the P's later, I know. So the electorate has cast their votes, and
you have to count.
Electoral officers have counted the votes. Now, collation officers, help us look at that process. And because the point where we seem to be having issues now, some back and forth, delay in declaration of results, is this counting and collation points. What's your take on that process? Yes, granted, INEC has done a bit, but that point is still INEC's bit.
Yes, that's true. Well, I am going to talk from the point of view as a participant. Sometimes all this while we've been sitting on television and radio analyzing. But it's also very important you go to the field and see how it works out so that you can give probably a fairer view when you sit on television studio like this to analyze. So I was a participant, and by the way, I delivered my boot in my village. So congratulations, because that shows you have started as a politician. I watched the entire process. Now, as the Prof rightly pointed out, the issue of logistic, logistic was taken care of a bit this time around, in terms of timely arrival of materials. By 8 o'clock, they were all there. Now we started to vote. Now, after voting, you have to sort. After sorting, you count, and then you now record, and then collation. We have issue with collation. Now we have issue even with the counting process. When people discover that another party is winning different from their own expectation, they want to cause confusion. I saw it. Bottle was broken in my presence. If not for some of my presence there, a lot of things would have happened in my own polling unit. And so the issue of collation is another issue. We have to drive to follow the INEC officers, because I hear that between the polling unit to collation center, things can happen. Result can be rewritten. If you see the speed with which we are following INEC officials in order to go to the collection center, and even at that, I discovered that alterations were done even at the collection center before submission. Wow. I witnessed that one. Somebody was also arrested and taken.
Party agents?
Yes, what happened was that even some party agents did not even accompany them. Ordinarily, ordinarily, it's supposed not to be that way. The party must even, but in Nigeria, it's war, as Prof has rightly pointed out. And why is it war? And I've said it here over 10 years ago, that as long as benefits that are credible to political officers are so much in Nigerian political system, we may, read my lips, we may never have free and fair election in Nigeria. Forget whatever all the improvement we do with the electoral process, making it electronics. These guys will beat you in the game. We didn't know that when they were buying the PVC, that they're going to use the PVCs in election. Because ordinarily, you are supposed to use your PVC. And so when you put your thumb, it shows all your data. But people who were not the owners of the PVC, use it in this electoral. And I witnessed it. Somebody came to me and said he has 43 cars to sell. Yes. Am I ready to buy? I said, what for? So it's important we go. 3 cards, PVC, yes, he has it.
His own,
yes, different from PVCs. And he brought it and he showed, am I ready to buy? I said, why would I do that? And the party that was ready to buy, there were several PVCs bought 10,000 naira.
This happens at the hinterland.
So what happens? Yes, in hinterlands, in the village. You know what they do now?
How do they use it?
Yes, when they finish, in connivance with the INEC officers, they start using it. Yes, if you don't have this understanding, you cannot use PVCs that are not attributable to you. Like you are your marking day. Somebody's supposed to look at your picture and then look at your the data. This is your basic data before you can. But this one is that they allow it.
I'm wondering how INEC vets the staff at that level.
Ad hoc
staff. Yes. How do they vet it? Do they have to maybe go an extra mile and talk to traditional rulers, people who are strongholds within their unit, let's say you, for instance, to maybe suggest someone?
Yes, no, it's the political parties actually that submit names.
But you're in a political party?
Yeah, is it? Sorry?
You're in a political party?
Yes, I say it's the political parties that submit these names to INEC. Ordinarily, it's supposed not to be. Most of those ad hoc workers have one political affiliation or the other. So they're the one that submit the names to INEC officers.
At the level of the returning officer?
Yes, most of them. So highly compromised. So the system, as I said earlier, if we're going to have free and fair election in this country, reduce the benefits that public officers, because the desperation comes in. They are ready to kill. They are ready to commit all manner of fraudulent acts in order to be there. I saw it firsthand.
We'll get to that. The governance part.
Okay, governance part.
But
yes.
there's concern about the counting and collation process now, because there are 6 to 8 states declared inconclusive, some suspended, some inconclusive, as we have now. And then there are still going to be rerun or runoff elections
or supplementary
elections for these states that have these issues. What do we need to do now? Because the risk is lives could be lost. Lives have been lost. lives are in jeopardy, and lives could be lost. One of the reasons that some of these elections have not been declared is the same thing. We saw what happened in Imo State. We saw what happened in, was it Sokoto State? That lady that was the Bauchi State. We saw what happened in what's happening in Benue, in Sokoto, and all of that. So what do we need to do now? What does INEC need to do now about those 2 points? We know it's manual, there's nothing we can do about this now, but what does INEC need to do now in order to be able to ascertain the credibility of the results? Because we just seem to look at these votes as figures. They are people.
I am sorry to say this, I'm a lawyer, but I have also discovered that the only security agents that Nigerians fear is the military. If we can have an impartial military that will just be there to show presence, that will drive fear into the minds of those who want to cause mayhem or unleash violence in the electoral process, if they just be there and maintain neutrality, that will go a long way, because I have discovered that the policemen they usually send unarmed. One, if not for some other security arrangement that we made in my own polling unit, there is no way we wouldn't have had a breakdown of law and order within my. I saw it. At the time somebody broke bottle, as I said earlier. That one policeman that is not armed cannot in any way, drive fear in the minds of the electorate. So when people also criticize, I'm coming.
You're talking about the voting.
The voting process.
No, I'm talking about the counting and collation points.
Beautiful. They must show. There must be that presence of the military. Even though people will criticize, we shouldn't get the military involved. If the military can remain neutral, their presence around will create some level of sanity. If they will, allow it. If they remain neutral, neutrality is very key. Because it's only security agent that they fear. Honestly.